Alright everyone, whenever you get a chance to watch the lamestream media, just think of it like a comedy, because that's really what it is. But if you look too long at it, it might melt your brain, so, don't do that too often. You might actually become one of those mind-numb hordes that believes them. But CNN, on their Twitter, link in the description to the archive tweet, they were very, very surprised, because they found out in the state of Florida, you don't need a concealed carry permit for a rifle. Oh my goodness. And then you take 10 seconds to try to think about why that might be. Oh, that's right. It's going to be kind of hard to concealed carry a rifle. You might be able to pull it off. Look, the next big gang trend as far as gangster clothing will be clothes that are so baggy that you can hide a double-barreled shotgun up them. I guess that's sort of what they're expecting. No, see, here's the thing within gun crime. And by the way, CNN, like every other outlet, is conveniently ignoring that most of the crimes that happen in this country with a gun happen with a handgun. A handgun is the sort of weapon a person's probably going to use for a crime most of the time because it's easily concealed. Look, the average criminal, unless they're psychopathic or they're reacting to something, like they become enraged, like they walk in on their wife cheating with someone, so they decide to shoot him. Crime of passion. Unless it's a crime of passion or they're a psychopath, chances are they're thinking somewhat rationally. They're attempting to get away with their crime. They're not trying to get thrown in jail for murder or assault or shaking somebody down in an alleyway. No, they're trying to get away with it. So they don't want anyone to know that they're armed beforehand. That's why handguns are the preferred manner of conducting most violent crime that's going to involve a firearm. When we're talking about rifles, we're talking about a totally different class of criminals. And trust me, anyone who is openly carrying an assault rifle, when you see like these militia people when they walk down the street in full combat armor, carrying their AR-15 or whatever, they're generally not a threat. If you attempt to antagonize them, might be. Generally speaking, though, they're not the ones that are shooting people. They really aren't. It's like people talked about the Bundy standoff. Oh, militias showed up, they were aiming guns at federal agent stuff. Did any of them fire a shot? No, there's a reason for that. They have self-control. Showing extreme levels of restraint. By the way, generally speaking, you get two groups of people aiming guns at each other. It's a powder keg situation. Nobody actually ended up killing one another. Except later on when they were going through a checkpoint, federal agents opened fire on them. Apparently without provocation. There was actually dash cam footage of it at the time. Nobody wants to talk about that shooting, because the government was perpetrating it. Not a fan of the Bundys necessarily on certainly a religious and maybe even mostly political basis, but they were in the right in that event. Sorry, folks. Sorry, anti-Second Amendment folks, you were wrong there. The government opened fire. It was sort of a Ruby Ridge situation, maybe, I guess. But CNN was very, very surprised. You don't even need this permit to concealed carry. Yes, the average person who owns a rifle wants to concealed carry it. That means that they want to have, they definitely have to have a trench coat on at that point. So I guess the trench coat mafia thing is going to be in vogue again, like for the first time since right after Columbine. It's not going to happen, dude. If someone's concealed carrying, it's a pistol. Maybe a very, very small, what you would class as kind of a submachine gun looking-esque weapon. Like they have all these weird definitions. They think every weapon is an AK-47 or an AR-15 anyway. Like, your little airsoft rifle, that's an AR-15. A hunting knife, that's an AR-15 accessory, because you could always duct tape it on the front, so it'd be really effective bayonet. They believe these things. There's a reason why, I'll tell you why. Most of the people at CNN who do their, reporting, on the national level anyway, aren't they based in New York or one of these other large cities? Cable firms always are. They're based in some major city, so they're not really around people who, drive around with a sporting rifle because they expect the vague possibility that, I'm out here in the middle of the woods, might see a bear, might have to deal with the situation. I might see a really tasty deer. Look, my dirt floor, barefoot, and pregnant neighbors could make a snack of that for the next week. There are people who live like that, but CNN doesn't know that. They live in like New York City or something. The only time they see a gun is when a gangster or a cop is holding it. It's the only time that they see one. And also then you don't even hear about the concealed carrying Fortune 500 CEOs and bankers who have a piece on them at any given time because of the former groups of people. It's very funny. And then the CNN comes out, like all of these other alarmist, fear-mongering, jackboot asshole thugs. They come out and they say, well, we need more common sense gun reform, which is to say disarmament. That's what you actually mean. What you mean is that you want to ban sporting rifles. Just to say it plainly, I know that it's less popular when you say it that way, but that's the truth. That's what you want. And you're not going to get your way, but that's what you desire. The problem being, you're making the argument that the population, that civilians should be less well armed. You know, you talk about the, what was it, the redneck leftist militia, like self-described or something, like a bunch of Antifa members with basically, you know, assault rifles, sporting rifles. So you want to disarm them too? Well, good luck. I don't think that's going to go over so well because the president, you've declared him to be Adolf Hitler. I think it might cause some violence if you show up at people's doors trying to take away, you know, what essentially are just cosmetically modified hunting rifles. That's what an AR-15 is. The Armalite 15, they say, well, the military designed the Armalite rifle. Yes. This is the civilian version. It's not automatic. It's not used in any military in the world for a reason. It would be useless for use in a military. It'd be the sort of thing the soldier has run out of all other standard options, so they grab that because they have no other choice. They're not going to default to, hey, I think that next time they send me over to Afghanistan, I'm going to take my AR-15 with me. You know, my civilian version AR-15, okay, modify it and it'll, you know, fire automatically. That's wonderful. It's not the same design. It's the same company. It's the same line of products. That's like saying that the Volkswagen Beetle is like some really, really high-end Volkswagen sports car. It's not the same thing. Oh yeah, my old 70s era Ford, it's exactly the same as a fully modern one, equipped with all the latest equipment that costs 200 grand. No, it's not the same thing. It's not a military weapon. It's military style in a cosmetic sense. It's military style in the way it looks. It looks like the sort of thing a soldier would carry. Trust me, you're not going to find even a third world military using that particular brand of rifle. God, these people, the thing that pisses me off isn't even so much maybe the moral composure of their argument. It's just that it's dumb. It's so dumb. It's so obviously wrong. You could Google the issue and you'd know that you were wrong. But they're so they won't even do that. They don't want to be challenged by anything outside of their echo chamber. You get these crazy people, they actually think that that's reality. They believe CNN, you know, hyper-urbanite, 7-figure salary pundits reading scripts, telling them about gun policy. They don't know anything about gun policy. They don't represent the average American. They don't represent the average American who doesn't live in central Manhattan and live in a penthouse. It's not the way that the average person lives their life. You know, okay, anytime you see a gun go off, the cop just shot somebody, or a Crip just shot somebody, or something like that. That's wonderful. That's in your neck of the woods. In our neck of the woods, the average person with a gun is just a random civilian. They're probably never going to fire on another person. By the way, I do not have sources for this, but this is the scuttlebutt. You know, the 18 school shootings since the year began figure, it turns out, this is what I've heard. Somebody needs to get me sources because I'm a stickler for that, because otherwise somebody will come on and say, aha, Styx was inaccurate in some way, therefore every other argument he makes is wrong. What I've heard is that a good proportion of those school shootings were instances where a firearm was discharged and nobody actually got killed, and a couple of them were suicides. That is, more than half of that total wasn't school shootings at all, and in, I believe, all but 2 of those cases, otherwise, the other 6, only 1 person was killed or injured. Those would not be considered school shootings by, you know, what we typically think of as school shootings. Typically, when we hear school shooting, we think some kid showed up with a trench coat and a machine gun and mowed as many people down as he could. That's what we think of with school shooting. Some person came through and just blasted half their classmates and killed off a couple teachers, a couple students, the resource security person, the mall cop basically in some cases, which is terribly sad. 5 or 6 people are dead, or maybe, 5 or 6 dozen people are dead. Instead, in most of these cases, it's 1 person at most. That's what I've heard. Somebody needs to compile the statistics with that, because it would be interesting to see, because that would be a pretty gaping hole in the Machillin's argument. Yeah, having 2 mass shootings on school campuses, it's terrible. You know what you need more armed guards in schools. I hate to say it, but it's probably do a better job than saying, oh, well, guns are not allowed. Jimmy can't own a gun. Well, Jimmy doesn't care if you tell Jimmy not to own a gun, trust me. Because Jimmy's probably a fucking lunatic. If somebody's a lunatic, they're not thinking straight already. Now, thankfully, lunatics sometimes get themselves caught. I guess there was a kid like the other day arrested not far from here for talking online about wanting to blow up his school or something, like in Poultney. That's not far from here. Now, was it a credible threat? They'll probably just charge him with threats and probably find out it wasn't credible, but they'll put him in a psych ward is probably what'll happen. But I mean, yeah, sometimes they get themselves caught, especially in the internet era. Oh, it's wonderful. It's way better than, in the past when you would have to rely upon their one crazy friend who still hangs around with them and they have like pizza face and shit. Talking about how much he hates bullies and he wants to shoot people. And you have to rely on that other slightly odd kid to report it to the police. No, now sometimes people will brag about something like that online and then they get themselves nailed. Oh, yeah, well, here, look at this comment that you left about how you wanted to slice your teachers' heads off. Would you care to explain and your katana collection? Yeah, it might be a little bit different. By the way, it turns out that the comments were left by this individual, by Cruz, sometime before, and they were looked into and nothing was done. So that's a little bit of... So yes, the FBI is beyond reproach, though, in every possible way, shape, and form. They never make a mistake. That makes total sense. So CNN saying that you don't need a concealed carry... Florida is very backwards, very, very gun-loving. Because they don't think that you need to buy a piece of paper saying you're allowed to do something no fucking person is actually going to do. Here, let me shove my rifle in my coat. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. That's about all. Peace out.